Back in February, I had this pivotal conversation with my therapist, and I had hit a point of peak listlessness. The freedom had gotten to me. It was too much. It was no longer free. And my therapist could feel that. And he came to the session prepared to have this conversation. And he challenged me in this particular session that he said, Ben, do something with your life, like anything. He didn't care at this point what it was. He said, take a class, get a job, any job, doesn't matter. Just do something. And but then it led to this really beautiful conversation, a really just, I don't know, definitive conversation. And we were exploring why I went into the field in the first place, why I chose psychotherapy, marriage and family therapy. And and he backed off. He even said, I'm backing off. You're going to have to find the answers. And I'm glad that he did, because I needed to find them for myself and not look to him for validation. But in that process, it was very challenging. Nothing was coming to mind. I was stuck for what seemed like minutes. I was really struggling. I was scrambling in my head, trying to find the answer, and nothing was happening. And then finally something clicked. And eventually this emotion came up, this passion, this desire. And I realized in that moment that what drew me to the field, what I loved so much about it, was the trusting connection that could take place. And really, more specifically, that I was this trusting person, that someone would feel safe, that they would keep coming back to me because they feel safe. No matter how progress went, the fact that the person returned to me was that they felt that they could trust me. And I loved this realization that I could be that trusting person for someone who feels like they don't have that anywhere else in their life. And not just is it being this trusting person that is satisfying, but also in that, watching the person grow and develop and share the things that have been held back out of fear. And, you know, like I said, the tears came to me. I realized that, and it was probably either that day or the day after where it clicked for me, like, okay, I'm going back into the field. And months later, here I am, right, about 10 months later. But I had an experience that that deepened my understanding of trust. And it happened when I was working with this couple, and I addressed what I thought was the root of the problem in their relationship. And one of the partners just threw a lot of judgments at me, and I didn't know what to do in that moment. I was quiet. And I processed that afterwards with my therapist, one of those days after, and he said, Ben, this person didn't trust you. And he said, in that moment, I would have addressed that. And I would have said, whoa, hang on here. Therapy's not going to work if there isn't trust. And then he told me, he goes, that therapy just doesn't work at all when trust is not established, Ben. And I started thinking about that. And of course, when he says these simple, profound things, I go on this quest and I start uncovering it and investigating it for myself. And based on those experiences and coming back in the field, I realized that trust, not only is it essential in therapy, it's the foundation of humanity. In fact, trust, in my opinion, is the antidote to fear. But I thought about, well, even day one out of the womb, trust is essential. Before before we can talk, before we're aware of ourselves or others, like that trust is needed. Our bodies communicate that. So for instance, like when an infant is crying, right, it's the parents or the caregiver's role to decipher those cries, which is not an easy task. But then when they do, eventually the child settles down. There's a peace, right? But I was thinking about that even more, that it's not just in those times, those really vulnerable times, that just being fed alone is enough, or being clothed or being kept warm, but it's the caring behind that when the child is fed, that there's this touch, there's this tenderness, there's this eye contact, there's even the peacefulness that they experience through the mother or whoever's nurturing the little one. And the same thing with when they're clothed, when they're rocked to sleep, when whatever that might be, it's the caring behind that that really makes the difference. And so out of the womb, we're in utter reliance and dependence of our caretakers. And we need that kind of nourishment, that somehow our bodies record this. It becomes internalized. But then as we get older, that trust, that the constancy and the consistency of trust is vital, because when we start to differentiate as kids, and we're trying to find who we are and our personalities coming forth and whatnot, and our desires and passions and our emotions are everywhere, and that we still need to know that we feel safe, that our parents are going to take care of us, that there isn't going to be shaming or judgment, or manipulation or anything like that. And when we experience that consistent safety and trust, then we know that we matter, right? When our needs are met, and then that means also that there's proper guidance and there's structure and whatnot, but all done for the out of love, out of care, out of wanting the child to grow up into who they are. And so when we know, when those needs are met, we know we matter. And when we know we matter, we know we're loved. And that becomes absorbed into us. And so we internalize this sense of security. So the security that is established between us and our caregivers then becomes something that takes place within us. And we then grow up in the world and connect with others and live in the world out of that place of security, that we know we're loved, we know that we matter. And that means that we're also not governed by fear, which means that we're genuine. We don't push our true self down. We can engage genuinely with people. We don't live in fear of them. We trust ourselves, and this is what's vital too, is we are able to trust our intuition. So no longer are we looking outward for, tell me, is this okay? Is this good? Not that we don't ever have guidance and people walking with us, but there isn't this dependency on other people to tell us what to do in our life, but we are able to listen to ourselves and trust that intuition, listen to our feelings, feel our feelings, and understand the messages in them. We can also play and imagine and create, and we don't avoid. We are able to care for others without losing ourselves. We engage in novelty, the new experiences, and we're excited about life. And then we can connect intimately too with people. Now that's the best case scenario. And when that doesn't happen, when we have inconsistent safety and trust, or maybe it's consistently dangerous, what's going to happen is we go in survival mode. Our walls go up. We end up being stuck in this place of being externally reactive. So that means we're, as young kids, because safety is not just being given to us and love and whatnot, then we're going to find ways to get that, some semblance of that. So if we live in dangerous environments, we're going to do our best to try and create safety, right? So if dad's an alcoholic or mom, and they come home and they want a beer and whatnot, well, the child's going to prepare that beer for the dad, because that keeps it safe. Then the dad feels okay and is calm and is not going to blow up and rage and whatnot. And there's a million different scenarios, right? But either way, instinctually, we're going to create that safety and trust for ourselves, and we're going to create to maybe naturally kind of or instinctually create these kind of personas so that we're loved, that we're noticed, that we're seen, we're understood, but it's not for who we are. And so then we end up, as we get older, it creates issues with intimate relationships. There's a struggle with enjoying who we are and loving who we are and being able to enjoy life from that place within. We don't trust ourselves. We're not able to listen to our feelings. It creates compulsions, anxiety, disorders, all of that. So disorders, to me, psychological disorders are they're the result or the manifestation of having pushed down our true self, which is why then people come into therapy, because they feel lost, they're in discomfort, they're confused, they're going back to the same relationships, or they're stuck in patterns of conflict with their romantic partners or family members or whatnot, and they're overwhelmed with depression and anxiety and or internalizing anger, or their outbursts of anger. I mean, there's just countless things. And so for me, what I love about therapy and what I love about my role is that really I become mom and dad to the client. And it's a reparative relationship. And it's not just reparative in the sense that wounds can be healed, but that when someone feels safe, when they're not afraid, when I show them that I'm not gonna harm them anyway, or judge them, or manipulate them, or anything. Or even if I have moments where I react or whatnot, and I seek to repair it, to reestablish trust, that as that continues to take shape, as that continues to be the foundation, then the fear reduces and the person's true self comes out. And and that it's no longer obstructed by judgment or by fear, but as they're cared for, that they begin to experience a greater awareness of themselves and a caring of themselves. And so for me, that's where this is the opportunity for the person's inner life that's been pushed down to start showing up, and that the genuine self is cared for more than that person's ever experienced. And it's an opportunity for the person to connect with themselves, because when we grow up in the fear-based environments, we end up disconnecting for the sake of safety. And that means we might push down anger or sadness, sometimes even happiness and excitement, or other desires, sexual, whatever it might be. And this is an opportunity for the person to connect to that once again. So that's what I love, and that's why I've seen even more clearly, like, man, trust is that is essential. It's not an option. It needs to be there. It needs to be in place. So I'll have successive videos that talk about how trust is built in a therapeutic connection. But again, this translates into, I think, any close human connected relationship. So take care.